good morning, and welcome to day 2 of Job. Once again, if you haven't interacted with the videos, please feel free to do so. That way I know you've attended. That way you can get your patch at the end of this week or the end of the summer. We want you to be able to earn your patch. One of the things I'll remind you of is the fact that you could earn all 3 religious patches this summer. You can attend my services daily. You can attend rabbi services daily, you can attend the Catholic services daily, and if you chose to, you could earn all 3. I think that's a pretty cool aspect of what's happening now with, even though we have to quarantine, you can actually get all 3 patches. You could even get them in a week. But of course, if you wanted to spread that out, you could do that as well. But I'm very glad that you're here. We're studying Job. We're looking at how he did or did not fulfill the scout law. So I want you to think about something. What happened to Job yesterday? If you remember, just type a little something for me. And I'll remind you, and if you didn't happen to be here yesterday he lost 500 oxen, 500 donkeys, 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels. All in a very short amount of time. He also lost an incredible number of servants who were looking after all of the animals. So, it's pretty bad. So what happens next? I mean, things can't get any worse than that, right? Well, while he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. And I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." Now, hold on. I mean, livestock and servants are one thing, but his kids? All 10 of them killed at once? That's pretty incredible. I mean, what do you think your response would be to something like that? I have 2 kids, and if that happened, I would be completely devastated. I can't even think of what my response truly would be. Now, when bad things happen, earthquakes, fires, floods, accidents, who gets blamed often? God does. Sometimes people even call those things an act of God. But how do you think Job responded? At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Tore his robe, that sounds like he's pretty angry. And shaving his head. Why would he do something like that? What do you think? Again, give me a response. Well, I will tell you, when I looked into this, tearing your clothing and shaving your head were both a sign of mourning. Someone dies, you go into mourning. That was one of the signs of mourning. So, if he didn't tear his robe and shave his head out of anger, but instead did it as a sign of mourning, what does he do next? Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So Job's response is to worship, to praise, and not to blame God. When something bad happens to you, do you look for somebody to blame? It's a normal response. We all do it. A couple years ago, my Jeep was broken into. My guitar was stolen. I was upset. Go figure. I went home. After it had happened, I sat down and I talked long and hard with the Lord. I asked him why. Not because I was blaming him, but because I wanted an answer. Why was my guitar stolen? I never did get an answer to that question. I will tell you what I did get, and that was a new guitar. A friend of mine saw the post that I put on Facebook asking people to pray. He started, without me requesting it, he started a GoFundMe page for me, and in 72 hours I had enough money to purchase a brand new guitar. That was just a guitar. Job has lost so much more, and his response is incredible. Job understood that bad things happen to everyone. And even though he had lost a lot in a short amount of time, he didn't blame God. In fact, somehow, Job can do it, he didn't blame anyone. He kept his focus on God so he could keep everything in the proper perspective. That's not easy. I pray I'm going to get to that point someday. I'm praying you get to that point someday. I pray that the very first response each of us has when adversity strikes is worship, prayer, singing, praise. But it goes on. On another day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them to present himself before him. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason." So God's defending Job and showing Satan that Job is who he has always been, without all the trappings, without all the livestock. Who he is as a man has not changed. His heart remains the same. And what does Satan say? Skin for skin. A man will give all he has for his own life, but now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well, then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. God gives permission again, but make sure that Satan can't kill Job. Instead, Job is covered in sores from head to toe. We hear a lot about sickness these days. We're hearing a lot about hospitals these days. Anyone here ever been so sick that you needed a hospital? If Job were alive today, he would definitely be quarantined in a hospital, in the intensive care unit, until they could get those open wounds to heal that were on his body. Now, something perhaps not quite as bad, but anybody ever gotten poison ivy? I know I have. My dad used to get it so badly that he got it, if he got caught wind of it, it got all over his body so bad that his eyes would actually swell shut. He told me once that he wanted to scratch so badly, and sometimes he did, it would take weeks for it to clear up on him. Eventually it got to the point where he had to have shots for it every year just to prevent him from getting covered in poison ivy. But as painful as that was for my father, it did clear up. But with Job, I know this is a little gross, but it is open bleeding sores on Job. So a few years ago, I had the misfortune of getting Lyme's disease. And at that point, I had never been so sick. I had a fever of 103.9. I was literally shaking uncontrollably. My family was very concerned for my condition. I was very glad they were, but I was so sick I didn't even notice how concerned they were. I just couldn't stop shaking. Now see, my dad had calamine lotion and shots to deal with his poison ivy. I had antibiotics to help heal me. And what does Job have? Not much. No one brought him any clean linens to wrap his wounds in. Now there were salves that might have brought him relief, but he didn't have any. Instead, I know, again, this isn't pleasant, but he scrapes his wounds with a piece of pottery. Probably to help get rid of the pus that's seeping out. I know. Not a great picture before breakfast, but there you go. But see, that's all the medicine he had, a piece of pottery to scrape his sores with. Now, there's one person that we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about the servants and the livestock and God and Satan and his kids. But we haven't spoken about Job's wife. I mean, if he had kids, he had a wife. So what do you suppose her reaction is in all of this? She says this. His wife said to him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." Wow. Not a nice thing to say at all. Curse God and die. Why would she say that? She seems to be blaming God for what has happened. She's not seeing things from the Lord's perspective the way Job is. Job's remarkable. He loses everything. And his wife tells him to curse God and die. I mean, do you think anyone in the area would have blamed him if he had done it? Possibly not. But Job couldn't do that and remain faithful to who he truly was. Oh, did I actually say that Job's lost everything? He hasn't actually lost everything. He still has God. And he knows that God is truly all-knowing, and so he places himself in God's hands, and he lets it go at that. So what does Job say to his wife? He replied, "You are talking like a foolish woman." Excuse me. Oh, look, we're live in Yahoo. "You're talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. Job keeps his focus where it needs to be, on God. He is at a place where he's ready to accept whatever God sends his way. So today, with whatever you're doing, whatever you happen to be doing in your life, whether you're watching these videos and learning all about camp, or you're trying some new skill, think about what Job went through. When things become tough, when you're having hard times trying to figure out what else you need to do, remember how Job reacted. Look to the Lord always, but especially look when things are hard. So, how do you think Job is doing fulfilling the scout law today? With everything we've learned. Make sure you're specific, write something in. Find something that you think he's doing well, please write that. If you think there's something he's not doing well, you can write that as well. That's one of the ways I'll know, or the way that I'll know that you've been here. However, I also ask that you put in your prayer requests. That way I can start to pray for those as soon as they come in for me in week 2. So I will be doing that. But we're going to close with a word of prayer, and then we will move on to day 3 tomorrow. Lord, again, thank you. Thank you that you are with us. Thank you that we can learn from someone like Job, who found a way to hold steady, to hold firm no matter what the losses were. Lord, I ask that you would help us each to get to that point, to be able to not blame you, not blame anyone, but Lord, to be able to look to you as our source of strength. I ask that you bless us as we study, as we learn, as we grow. Lord, as we go through all the things that we do this week, that you would help us. I ask that you would continue to be with all those who are directly affected by COVID-19. I ask that you would be with all those who are in the hospital struggling and battling any other diseases or any other problems that are happening, Lord. Father, that you bless those who are in the medical profession, that you surround them with caregivers and you surround the caregivers with caregivers, Lord, that we can truly be a support to one another. Father, for all those who work behind the scenes, those who work in hospitals, in prisons, in nursing homes, wherever they happen to be, Lord, those who work for us on a daily basis in grocery stores who have never closed, Lord, for the post office who continues to deliver the mail, I ask that you would bless each of those people, that you would help them, that you would protect them, keep them safe. Lord, for our first responders, that you would take care of them and bless them. And Lord, for those who are elected officials among us, from our president down to our local elected officials, and even those appointed, Lord, that you would touch, bless, you would send people into their path who know you, that they can speak your word, that, Lord, truly they can hear you, and we can be governed by a united people, not people who all think the same, but, Father, all those who be able to come together, to be able to work together for the betterment of our country and for the betterment of the world. So I ask, Lord, that you just be with us wherever we happen to be, that you unite us and you bring us back. Truly allow us to come back safely to Yago again. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, day 2 is done, and we'll see you tomorrow.